Welcome back to Dice Pixels. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about the OGL stuff that's going on and a bunch of other D&D related things. There was a question from one of the viewers, Temple. We're going to talk about that and whatever else comes to mind. So let's start with the OGL stuff.
Get that done and over with at least.
Yeah. So Wizards released the full text of the OGL version 1.2. Link will be in the description if you're curious. You've probably already seen it, but if not, check it out. They got rid of a few things that people were grumpy about. People are grumpy about new stuff. People are probably going to be more grumpy once they realize what it truly says.
Also, we were right.
We were right about a lot of it. Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is what we said before was, wait. Yeah. And oddly enough, that was good advice. People obviously got super outraged about stuff that mostly didn't matter. So one of the major things that they've changed, as you probably already know, is the wording around the license back. People were very, very angry about the license back portion of it, which of course hasn't really changed. Basically what they did was they changed it from an explicit license to saying that you can only seek monetary action or monetary relief by lawsuit. That means that you can't get injunctive release. You can't stop them from publishing something. You can only sue them for monetary damages. But more importantly, in the contract, and I think a lot of people haven't really noticed this yet, is or just don't understand what it means. There's a clause in there that says, as part of that you agree that substantial similarity and access is not a valid cause for the lawsuit, which means that actually suing them for taking your stuff is basically impossible. And by my reading, you'd literally need to have like leaked emails from inside Wizards, like having somebody say, we're going to steal this person's stuff. Like that's the only way that I could imagine getting a lawsuit actually into a court system. So effectively nothing's changed there. It's not an explicit license, but frankly, they could still steal your stuff if they wanted to. I maintain that was never their goal in the first place. They just want to be protected in case you both come up with a spell with the same name, which is completely reasonable. Mm-hmm. So no big change there. I think people don't understand what the text means. I think people will as more lawyers take a look at it. And I think a select few people will still be grumpy about that. But most people probably should never care because it won't affect them.
And that's my thing. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. Like as a player, and again, I don't have a lot of personal opinions about this because I am still a relatively fresh and new D&D player. Like I started playing a couple years back. We'll talk more about that later probably. But as a player, I don't care about any of this. Like it's not going to affect the way that I play D&D. Like I'm still going to play and enjoy D&D. It's a fun game. I enjoy it. I like it. There's no, as a player, there is nothing that this is going to affect me personally, period.
Yeah. And I think more and more people are starting to come around to that. Like there was a lot of outrage when it first came out. And I think there was parts of it that people had every reason to be outraged about. A small set of people, way more people were outraged about it than had any reason to be. But some people will still be outraged because that's what they like to do. They get off on being outraged about things. But most people that I've talked to and seen that aren't just jumping on the outrage bandwagon are basically of the same opinion. They're like, I don't sell content that's to do with D&D. I play, I DM, I don't publish stuff. Or maybe I publish like the tiniest little thing that I've made a few bucks on. This doesn't affect any of those people. It affects places like Kobold Press, which they have every reason to be annoyed about this. But at the same time, they've made a lot of money off of a property that Wizards put out to the world. And if Wizards wants to change the terms on that, I mean, you can call it crappy and everything else, and maybe it even is, but I mean, it's still their right to do it. Yeah. So, But I think the outrage is subsiding, and I think that the actual conversation is starting, which is usually how these things work. People work themselves up into a tizzy for a few weeks, and then they kind of come down to reality a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and again, going back to what I was saying too, I've even seen like on Twitter a lot of people that are players have flat out said like, I'm still going to play this game because it's a game that I love playing. It's a game that, you know, socially it brings people together to enjoy something that, you know, everybody loves doing. So despite, I can get what you said. I can get some of the outrage to it. Sure. A lot of the, like Kobold Press, they released their statement about it, and I'm not going to repeat it because, you know, it's there to read. Like, check it on Twitter, you can find it. And I like a lot of other independent creators are probably doing the same kind of well-spoken responses, you know, not so heated responses, but very business
measured response.
Measured response. So we expected that. Like, I mean, like we knew it was going to happen. Like, this is their backbone, right? So
yeah, they don't want to
of their business.
Yeah, they don't want to make enemies of Wizards.
No.
Even if maybe they do want to, they don't actually want to. It's bad for business. So yeah, I mean, most of what they came out with was pretty expected. There's a few things that actually did take me a little bit by surprise. So starting off with the thing that everybody seems worked up about in a good way, that actually means absolutely nothing. The Creative Commons license that they're doing, they're basically releasing the actual mechanics of the system under the Creative Commons license, which, by the way, if you've read some of the articles, no, it's not a new license that they're creating or anything else. It's already there. Creative Commons already created it. They're just using that license. It's what's sort of called a copyleft license because it essentially undoes copyright to an extent. But that's all of the stuff that everybody kind of said from day one that it wasn't copyrightable in the first place. So them releasing it under the CC license is kind of like, cool, but you would have lost that court case anyways. Yeah. So it really doesn't matter. It is good though. I mean, it means that nobody has to take them to court. So I mean, that's good. That is a win. But it also really doesn't mean very much. The rest of it is still under the OGL. And, yeah, I mean, they got rid of the royalties, which seemed to calm down a lot of people, which doesn't surprise me. For some reason, a lot of people were super upset that Wizards might want some of their money if they made a lot of money off of it. And I mean, obviously Wizards didn't care that much about it because that was the first thing they axed. So,
actually, when you're talking about the not having the
royalties,
right? Yeah, that. I'm actually looking at this again. Hey, don't you shake your head at me just because I have to buffer. The creator product badge, it kind of feels like a replacement for that.
A little bit.
Because when one of the things we discussed previously was the $50,000 reporting level, it kind of seems like the creator project badge is a way of saying like, hey, like as a creator, I want this so it looks good and official, but it also gives Wizards the opportunity to be like, oh, this person is creating stuff. Let's keep kind of a side eye at them to see what's going on. So
yeah, well, the $50,000 reporting, I mean, I maintain that what we said last 2 weeks ago when we were talking about this last was exactly correct. The $50,000 reporting was specifically Wizards' way of essentially talent scouting. Yep. I don't think it was anything else than that.
No.
The royalty was, I mean, again, if you're selling $1 million worth of product that's based on Wizards product and you're not reaching out to them for a license, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think anything really changes there.
No. No.
But whatever, like fine, they got rid of it. Cool. People will be happy about that. The Creative Commons is good. And I actually forget the
hateful and harmful,
the
hateful and harmful
that's
content.
what I was going to talk about.
They also released a statement regarding that as of 4 hours ago when we filmed this
on Twitter,
saying, do you want to talk about it first and then go into this, or just
you can read that first?
So they've said that the hateful and harmful content is hard to define, and we know this is a sensitive topic. We're taking it and your input seriously. We will clarify the language around this in the next draft and encourage your specific feedback in the survey, and they provide a link. This is all on the D&D Beyond Twitter handle.
Yeah. So a few things about that. This was their solution to the license back. Essentially, this was one of their solutions to the license back stuff is, and the termination specifically. This allows them to terminate your license for OGL2 for realistically any reason at all. It says in the license, and people have picked up on this. This is one of the things in the license that people have actually picked up on. There's a few other sort of more legalese things that people haven't really picked up on yet. But basically anything you say or do publicly or the content itself. So it's not just if you write offensive content, it's if you tweet something offensive, Wizards can pull your license like that. On the one hand, people aren't happy about this. Shocking. On the other hand, Wizards caught so much crap over the stuff that's happened over the last couple of years with people like Satine Phoenix, which I'm sure most people watching this are at least aware of that entire saga. People were on Twitter yelling at them to cancel these people and cancel their contracts and like retroactively unpublish stuff somehow. And if that's your reaction when somebody does something you don't like with Wizards product, then you bet your ass they need that clause. That clause is to allow them to do what these people were asking for.
Yep.
So whether they clarify the language or change it or otherwise, if that's their goal and they've made it clear that that is their goal, it's not going to change much. It's still going to allow them to do that. And that's what people said they wanted. Yeah. So, I mean, be careful what you wish for, right? They will now have that power going forward once they release this. And they've made it very clear that that is their goal with this new license. Above and beyond anything else, they want to be able to cancel the licenses of people who do things they don't agree with. I think that's crappy because I don't trust Wizards to decide what is and isn't acceptable for the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what people wanted.
Yep.
That's literally what people asked for last year before. So yeah, you got what you wanted.
Yep.
Yeah, it could be weird. I almost can't wait to see what some like just a stupid little thing like commenting on the refereeing at a hockey game or something like that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It could be anything.
Yeah, right? It sounds stupid, and I know it does, but just I mean, like it would be something like minuscule, like something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. How they intend on actually using and implementing it versus
like you dropped an F-bomb in a tweet and ooh, that's hateful.
Well, so that actually brings up the other small, thank you for reminding me of that. That brings up the other little gem that's buried in there, which I wasn't surprised to see, but makes this far more insidious, is there's a clause that says just because they don't exercise their rights doesn't mean they forfeit the right to do so. Which means that they can let me get away with swearing and whatever they determine as hateful or harmful or otherwise. They can let me get away with it for years and still retain the right to punish you for it. So they can apply that standard differently between different creators.
Huh.
Fuck.
And that's one of those phrases in there that most people aren't picking up on. And I wasn't surprised to see it, but it makes that really insidious because if they could, for instance, if there's another Paizo in the future that releases another Pathfinder-esque thing that uses a lot of Wizard stuff, they could just say like, hey, you know what? We decided that you tweeting that Happy Friday was harmful. I mean, obviously that's a stupid example, but they could choose almost anything and say, you're harming our business. Stop it. I mean, hell, as it's written, they could even just say you're harming our business by having a competing product, shut you down. Like it's so broadly written. And then coupling that with that other phrasing that says we can apply this to whoever we want, even if it's completely different between two people, means that they don't have to have any consistency in how they apply those rules, which is crappy. I mean, that is actually shitty. It's also not surprising.
No.
I mean, licenses have that kind of stuff in it all the time. But when you think through the conclusions, that kind of thing is pretty crappy. So,
yeah, I think mostly what people were, from what I saw, people were mostly concerned with the royalties and the control of content, of their own content.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they're making it more clear that they're not going to own anyone's content per se. So I think people are happy with that, but like all this other sneaky stuff.
Yeah, well, I think people who don't understand how the law works are happy with that. But the truth is, at a practical level, what they've written in this version of it is almost no different to what they wrote in the last one. It's just that now they've said like, hey, you can sue us for this, but also we're taking away your only realistic avenue of getting legal discovery, which means that you effectively can't sue us for this. So I guess it's better language, but honestly, there's no real change there.
Better language that they're apparently still going to be revisiting, thanks in no small part to this survey that they want people to do. So, I mean, okay. I'm still going to play. I don't care.
Well, I mean, that is the fundamental, most important thing, is that for every person who's outraged on Twitter, there's 100 people that just want to play the damn game.
Yeah.
But so many channels have told us that this is the end of YouTube or the end of D&D. So many YouTube channels, our comment section from the other video, oh, this is the end of D&D. Wizards is going bankrupt. So, I mean, what do we know?
Yeah.
No.
Right? Yeah.
That was the other thing that sprung up from all of that too, which I don't know if you wanted to kind of give it a little bit of a discussion here, but the various company, I mean, Cobalt Press said something about creating their own system.
Yeah, the 50 different new systems that we're going to have.
Yeah, like, and we briefly discussed that. I don't think we talked about it on camera, but we
I think mostly on Discord.
Yeah, we were just talking about like it would run into an issue where you'd have like 6 people all meet up at one location to play, the tabletop RPG, but each one would come from a different system and which system's the better system and all this nonsense.
I think the way that I phrase it on Discord is the most succinct and honestly most accurate way of putting it, which is just that, 50 different people, companies, whatever, all coming up with their own system to compete with D&D is not going to unite the community the way that people seem to think it's going to. No. It is going to cause problems, and people are just going to continue playing D&D because it's what they know.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, they've released the actual mechanics, or are releasing the actual mechanics through the Creative Commons. So great, that may be less of a problem. But as people have pointed out, like the class names, the spells, like all of that stuff is still protected. So,
I mean, wasn't it already too?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So nothing's changed in that regard. One thing I do like, though, as a result of people freaking out about the mechanics and whatnot, is there's been a few videos and articles that I've noticed that people are doing that are becoming more popular now of here's these different mechanics, these different systems to try. And I think that's great because like any like the fate system. Yeah. Like different people exploring different systems. I think that's fantastic. That's a...
Yeah. So there's been a lot of that, especially in the sort of non-OGL space.
Yes.
The people that just have nothing to do with the Wizard systems at all. And I think that is great. I think that's, exposure is great. And we talked about it ourselves. Like when we started a campaign. We were actually really excited to do an evil campaign, and we did one session of it.
Yeah.
But we were talking about it more recently, and we all kind of agreed that it's like, if we're going to play something, like we've got the time and we've got the consistent group, we're going to try something else. Like whether it's Pathfinder or whatever. I'd actually be kind of interested in checking out Pathfinder Kingmaker. I've never tried it before, but we talked about it, like we have the ability to easily swap systems. Yeah. Because it's the 3 of us and maybe a couple other people. We don't have to worry about whether the gaming group can get together on a new thing. So we're going to take advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except that in the comments, everyone called us wizards shills. So I don't think we're allowed to. I think we have to.
Oh,
Fuck it.
fuck it.
But that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a real problem if all of these companies actually try to create their own system.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to end up with splinter groups in your D&D, your tabletop group.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be a uniting force.
No, the creating new systems just doesn't seem to make sense to me currently right now as it is, because there's so many systems out there already that already work fairly pretty well. Like
correct.
The D10 system that we used the one time.
Artel-Saurian.
From
Artel-Saurian.
their
Cyberpunk
system. And
now, in fairness, I don't think most of those systems are licensable.
Yeah. But
at all.
Yeah. But just the same, like if people were wanting to explore different systems or use different systems for creating their stuff, they don't need to create a new system if it's already there. So.
No. Yeah, and I mean, if you're really worried about running afoul of the OGL stuff, just drop the first letter from all the class names and rock on, right? I mean, there's lots of ways around the OGL. There always have been. It's not that big of a deal.
I would like to play an Eric.
Yeah, there you go. We were talking, what was it, last week, I think. We didn't talk about the OGL on the podcast because nothing was worth talking about at the time. But we were talking about it over dinner. And I said what somebody should do, Paizo or otherwise, is they should release one of their modules minus all of the OGL content and then release that separately as a fuck wizards bundle and charge like $10 for it.
Yeah, put fuck wizards in front of everything.
Yeah, change everything so it's like fuck wizards fireball or whatever, and like just the whole thing all the way through. And I'm like, they would make at least thousands of dollars.
Yes.
But I think that ship has sailed now.
Yeah.
So, shall we talk about
let's talk about something else.
D&D stuff? So the question that I think we should start with is the one that Temple asked in Discord, which is, so the scenario was there was a wizard and a paladin and probably some other people, but they're the two that matters. And the paladin wasn't healing the wizard, and the wizard was a new player that didn't really know their class, and basically they were going to die. And he wasn't sure, as a fairly new DM, sort of how to handle that, how to guide a newbie without sort of playing their character for them. And he was curious what kind of interference was sort of acceptable, which obviously, whatever you want as the DM is acceptable to an extent, but sort of just some general discussion on how to handle that sort of situation. You've got a new player, they're not really playing right, or at least to their full extent, and they've got maybe a party member that's just not helping them, which I think is an interesting system, setup to be in, especially for a newer DM. I'm curious to hear your thoughts first as someone who has never DM'd. How do you feel about a DM stepping in and giving you direct guidance on your character?
I mean, I'm fine with it. I mean, the first time I played, I had a lot of guidance in creating my character.
Well, creating is one thing, but actually during the session. Yeah. During I kind of felt stupid because there was a few times where I would brain fart and just completely forget things like strength checks or whatever. So I kind of just flaked a bit. And then a friend of ours, Devin, said kind of in character, like, well, maybe a strength check. Yeah.
It's like, right. Yeah. And stuff like that. Yeah. Like, absolutely. And especially being green at the time. Yes. Like I read a lot, sure. But I mean, tell me these things, give me hints, pointers. And even after sessions, like I remember even like every game I've been in, we've always talked like afterwards or in between sessions, this, that, whatever. And we've thrown things at each other. I mean, I know you and I had a lot of talks about a couple of our characters that were of the geriatric and dragon variety.
Yeah, definitely. Sort of the post-session debrief is a great spot to cover a lot of that stuff. But obviously, in the moment, it can be more difficult. So one of the things that I like to do, and I'm going to give a whole bunch of different answers to this, because there's different ways to handle it. I think one of the things that I really like to do with any newbies to the game is send an NPC along with them. So when I was DMing for what I call the Toronto crew, there was a time where I gave them an NPC blacksmith, and there was other combats where I would have an NPC sort of drop in, sometimes even as like a Deus Ex Machina to end the fight because I thought it was getting out of control. And I try to keep it somewhat organic, but I don't worry too much about hiding that I'm giving them assistance, because as long as it's not too jarring from a story perspective, I tend to find that they're generally fairly like, I know what's happening, and I know that I don't want them to be completely screwed after this fight because it was supposed to be the introduction fight, and like they're going to be less happy if I let them completely screw themselves over and then they can't finish the quest or whatever because I just didn't give them any assistance. So I'm not too concerned about just literally dropping NPCs into the world. I try to do it in a fairly innocuous way where it's like I don't literally just have them descend from the heavens. Although the one time I did have a guy like kind of drop onto an airship out of nowhere, more or less. Yeah, like I don't hesitate to send an NPC along with people if they're new, because then you can talk through the NPC. Then you can literally say like, perhaps you should fall back. Or, hey, Paladin, heal. So that's one thing that you can always do with a new person in the party. Put an NPC with them, and they don't even necessarily have to be a combat NPC. The one NPC that I gave my guys, they basically rescued him as a blacksmith. So he wasn't particularly useful in combat, but he was there that I could sort of talk through him when necessary, which I found very helpful when everybody was still kind of trying to learn. And I was learning the balance of it too. I hadn't figured out at that point how to, zhuzh a battle in the middle of it to make it not kill them. I was still picking that kind of stuff up. So it was very useful to have that sort of conduit that I could talk through in the game. So that would be one suggestion that I have for any new DM is don't be shy to just literally send an NPC along.
Mm-hmm.
You as a DM are the Sky Voice.
Well, Sky Voice.
I did that the one day when we were playing something too. I just started talking to the DM as the Sky, as though he was the Sky Voice.
That's so good.
I mean, why not? That was fun.
Awesome.
That just opened up a whole new thing too. It was so good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
One thing that I have experienced as a player too is the DM just asking directly, like, can I make a suggestion here? Yeah. And that opens it up. So if you're willing to listen, they might give you some ideas or as the DM, you can give some ideas of, you can explore this route or do this. Just give options.
And you can also formalize that if you think it's useful to the players. Like you can straight up, in the same way that some groups play with sort of the like veto card where they have an X or something that they can hold up if things are going the wrong way narratively. Like if there's something that's going to like trigger them on like a psychiatric, like a sort of mental health level or something like that, or whatever, like they sort of like, hey, I'm not cool with this. Can we move on to something else? You can do the same sort of mechanic with somebody. If they're a new player, you can just like literally give them a little card or just tell them to like raise their hand or something and just be like, I'm lost. Can you help me? And that doesn't always help if they don't realize that they're lost. Yeah. But it's, and to your point, you can also, I have a suggestion.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the inverse of that, where the DM is holding up their card.
Now, mind you, having DM'd enough with enough different people, I can say that more often than not, they will not follow your suggestions.
Well, you throw it out there, and if they decide not to follow it, then it's their own fault.
You see a lovely path that's completely clear of any sort of encounter, and the quintessential like road to hell. Which would you like to take? Oh, the road to hell sounds great.
Clearly this completely fine path is a trap.
Right.
We're gonna get just completely destroyed.
Yeah.
And that's how the beast met Belle.
That's right. That's right.
Actually, that happened in a game we played too, wasn't it? Where we had like the straight up path and then this other path, and like people failed their stealth checks, so we made a shitload of noise going the hard way.
Yep.
And they knew we were coming anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, suggestions aren't always followed, but yeah, you can straight up I don't think it's bad for a DM to just straight up interrupt the party and just be like, listen, I'm trying to help you here.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that too, where somebody starts a fight that I know they can't win, and I didn't want them to win, and I don't want to deal with the fallout of them winning. So basically, I don't want them to all die because they did something stupid, and I don't want them to succeed the fight because it was never meant for them to, and the ramifications of that would be problematic for the world. I'll just straight up be like, listen, don't do this. Leave now, and they won't follow you. But if you keep going this route, I am going to have to kill you because you're outmatched, and I'm not going to save you. And that's okay. You try to avoid those situations, but once in a while, I mean, it happens.
Yep.
So yeah, and then so the next two things that I sort of had on the list are related to this. So the first thing I wanted your guys' opinion on. I know my opinion on this because we've talked about character deaths in the past, and I think that it's part of the story. I think that character deaths are perfectly fine. But what are you guys' thoughts on killing a newbie's character?
So I think that gets a little bit more complicated because your first character is always one of your first loves.
It can be a little demoralizing.
Yes. I think you could do it, but then leave yourself open to suddenly like everyone wakes up and it was all a dream or it was a premonition or something, or give them a very obvious way to solve the problem if they would like it.
Yeah. I
think that also needs to be a discussion that in terms of bringing the character back to life, whether or not the between the GM and the player themselves. Yep. But I think if they are putting themselves in a stupid situation where they've been given advice and things have been said like, don't do this or do this to solve the problem, and they're still not listening and they end up dead, well, like...
Yeah, there has to be a certain point where you just say like,
there is consequences.
What? You had your chance.
Yes.
So one of it's actually a little lower on my list, but one of the things to what you were talking about, depending on the situation, I will also sometimes give a player that's new, like if it's a single newbie in a group of people that have played for a while, I won't hesitate to give them a straight up like get out of jail free item where like I might literally just say, here is your amulet of resurrection. If you fuck up badly enough and die, it will just automatically true resurrect you.
Yeah.
Because, everybody gets one, right? Like if they're starting with a character that they like and they've put time into and everything else, I don't want them to just suffer because they made a bad decision. And so I will potentially just give them, and I'll just tell them straight up, I'll be like, once I feel that you're comfortable with the game, somebody will steal that or it will stop working or whatever. Like I'm going to take it away after a while because it's too powerful.
Yeah.
But if you die in the first 3 sessions, you're going to come back to life. Just full stop. So I will do that sort of thing sometimes as well. Or like a summoning stone that they can bring an NPC in to help with the fight or whatever.
I like that. That's a nice way to deal with it, to give new players at least a chance.
Yeah.
As you walk by this wizard's tower, you notice on the bulletin board a piece of parchment that looks kind of magical. And there's a bunch of tabs you can pull off, and each one can cast wish.
Oh man, if I was a super high level wizard, I would totally do that. just to see the shit that it would cost.
It's like one of those ads, like looking for a babysitter, phone number tabs. It's like wish.
Little wish scroll. I like that.
But only for like little wishes. Like, I wish there was more salt on this.
Oh, I just straight up make them cursed. I just, as soon as you pull it off, the wish scroll disappears and turns into like a blood pact with a demon or something.
It's baby mimics.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Ooh, or you just get like a little jar of nothing but mayonnaise. Like just a little wee thing, a thimble of mayonnaise, and it's always mayonnaise.
This item isn't going to make it into a future campaign at all. So get out of jail free card like items is something that I'm not against as a DM. And I've found that most players are supportive of it too, both experienced and new. They're like, if you've got 3 people at the table that have all played and 1 person that hasn't, like I've never had the experienced people be like, no, don't give them that. Screw them. It's always like, yeah, that's a good idea because they're going to do something stupid. And they don't want to just have to bail them out all the time either, right? Like they want to be able to play their game and the new person can play their game. And when they screw up, it's a learning experience instead of like a loss.
Yeah. With
that said, I also actually like to give new players pre-gen characters whenever I can to start with. And I will usually give them a pre-gen character if I can and tell them like, this is to help you learn. Like, let me know what class you want to play. I'll give you a pre-gen of that. And then once you're 2 or 3 or 4 sessions in, we'll just melt, like we'll manifest your actual character. You can just kind of change your backstory and everything, and we'll just kind of gloss it over in the narrative and it's fine. That way, if it dies, they can die naturally, but they don't feel that they've lost their character. They lost your character, which is like whatever.
We did that for Shadowrun.
Yeah.
When I created my character and you created your character. I eventually did flesh that out.
Yep.
And we talked about like backstories for him and everything. So yeah, that's because you don't get attached to it then.
Not right away.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that those all sort of come together. Now, of course, if you already started your session, your campaign with them having their own fleshed out character, there's only so much you can do. But you can always give them a resurrection amulet. You can give that to them anytime. It doesn't have to be
identical twins are a thing too.
Identical twins and cousins are things. Yeah,
I'm thinking of that the D&D logic by Viva La Dirt League, and they did that. The one wizard character would always die, and then all of a sudden he would reappear and he'd be like, "Oh no, it's my long lost brother, Bogrum," or some shit like that. But it happened. I think it happened like in every episode, but it was always so fucking hilarious.
Sure, absolutely.
Oh man,
yeah. There's lots of ways around it. I like allowing them to die, even if you're immediately bringing them back, because it lets them explore the absolute limits of their character.
Yes.
Because as we know, there are lots of fights where, you're in it and the entire party is like, we are boned, we are dying, we're done. And then luck changes and they end up pulling through by the skin of their teeth. So giving them the ability to really push the limits with that safety net as a new player, I think is beneficial. And like I said, I've never had a player be like, no, I don't want that. That's terrible. You'll get the occasional player that's like, I don't care, like kill my character if it works for the story. Like I'm that way.
That's me too.
Yeah. I'm 100% that way. I'm like, I can create a new character. I would, even if it's my first game of a new campaign, if I do something stupid, kill him, and that'll be just part of the story, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It creates more narrative interest. That happened to one of my characters too. I was playing a lizard folk monk. Within the first 5 minutes of our second session, Crouton was dead.
Yep. And
then I spent the rest of the session making my turtle druid, but there was little things throughout the rest of the time that we were playing that, because it was just before the pandemic we were playing that, and there was times where that character would come up again, And Brody was DMing that, and he literally made me cry with like a character. It was a little NPC kid that we had all thought had died, and turned out he was still alive, and he had like the bandana that Crouton had. And so I'm like, oh my God, in the middle of this session.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll actually say also that can be a useful addendum. I didn't mention at the time, but one of the reasons why having an NPC with the group can be really useful is because you can have that printed off as a pre-gen character. And if your newbie's character dies, if you decide to take it that far, you can just hand them that NPC sheet and be like, keep playing. We'll deal with it later.
Yeah.
So anything that lets them keep playing. The only thing you should never do as a DM is have somebody new to the game that like, you're done, get out of the game. Like you can't participate for that's a sin. Anything else is, in my opinion, fair game. Experienced players, I think it's kind of okay to be like, hey, look, you screwed the pooch. Like, go work on your new character. Come back next week.
Go hit the showers.
And that was exactly me with that character. Like, I had done a dumb thing. Brody felt terrible. He was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, I don't care. I did something dumb, and it was glorious.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like, I will say, my first character, I was really attached to because it was my first character. Like, I spent a lot of time creating the backstory and writing it and all that fun stuff. Granted, in the campaign he was in, we were severely limited with options and pretty much were railroaded to a certain endpoint. So yeah, having him die, like, that would have sucked big time. I mean, in the end, I would have still used them, again, but after, like, honestly, yeah, if it helps the narrative and the story is there for it, 100%. Yeah, I will let, even if I did take a shitload of time to create a character and have him or her die within like a session or two, if the story's there and it's good, whatever.
Yeah. And I think that comes, well, for most people, I think that comes with more playing. There are some people that just never want their character to die, and to my eye, those people aren't playing D&D. We've talked about it before. I am firmly of the opinion that character death is a part of the game, and that without it, the story suffers badly. But not everybody shares that, and that's fine. To each their own. But yeah, killing off newbies' characters is definitely can be a pretty. You don't want to turn them off the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's always the key. Yeah. But
and the best way to kill veteran players is to just lock them in a dimension.
That's right. Yeah. Put them in a Trask stomach. But yeah, and then so the other thing, I wrote it down here as how to make a dungeon crawl fun, but I actually have no advice on that because dungeon crawls aren't fun.
So I've played in dungeon crawls, and I think it depends on the group. If you are a person that likes playing D&D and enjoys the role play along with it, you can role play things very well in there, because like my sister is a through and through role player, and we had a good group going when we were doing a dungeon crawl campaign, and it was like the fighting stuff was fun, whatever, but the RP that came out of that group too was also very excellent. Yeah. And so that, I think, it's just your approach to it.
It's very much your approach to it. And obviously dungeon crawls can be fun if you've got the right group for it. But actually what I meant to write down here was, because I meant to tie it into sort of the newbie aspect. And where I was sort of originally thinking with this was, should you have newbies do any sort of sustained combat? And I tend to lean towards no. I tend to try. It doesn't necessarily work if you're in a group of veterans. If you've got like 3 or 4 people at the table that know what they're doing, and a newbie, they can get bored while the newbie is still figuring it out. So there's that. But if you've got a group of newbies, then I like to just throw small encounters. Make it so that there's almost no way they can possibly fail, and build it up slowly from there. So I would tend to, like, unless I've got veterans at the table, I am not throwing a dungeon crawl at them. Partly because they're not going to have fun unless they know what they're doing. If they're spending the entire time looking at their spell list or something, nobody's having fun.
Yeah.
If there's room at the table for role play because they all know what they're doing, great. You can have fun in a dungeon crawl. So that's just sort of a general thing. If you've got newer players, they are not going to have fun in a dungeon crawl. They're going to have fun in small one-off encounters that they can pretty easily clear and move on.
And that gives them the chance to explore what their characters are capable of.
Yeah.
So if you do throw one of those longer term fights at them, then it's not as terrifying or hopefully as boring.
Yeah. Well, it's the not as boring. I mean, if you're doing it right, hopefully long encounters should be terrifying. They should be sitting there being like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
Yes. That type of terrifying, not so much of, well, it's a different type of, oh my God, I'm
intimidating.
dying.
Yeah,
yes. Intimidating. That's the one I was looking for.
Cool.
What's your thoughts, Chad? You've been quiet.
For
2 seconds.
I've been quiet for 2 seconds.
Yes. What are your feelings on dungeon crawls?
I don't think we've ever had you do a dungeon crawl.
I think the closest I came to that
was the sewers.
Probably no, I don't even consider that a dungeon crawl. Yeah. Probably with Brody when we played that game with Brody for the
Christmas one.
Yeah, we did was it Christmas? I thought it was her birthday or something.
Yeah, but it was in December, so it was a Christmas one.
Yeah, one of the ladies that Sarah used to game with, she's in a wheelchair. So as a surprise and a gift to her, I believe that's what it was.
Yep.
You guys were describing that it was harder to get together. So you all made a special effort to get together.
We all got together and Brody did a big one shot we got a large group together and it was fun. And that would be like the closest thing I would say to a dungeon crawl because Brody can run a pretty decent dungeon crawl.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one was fun. It was really fun. We had there was one fellow there who was that one guy who got off. His character got off like sexually.
Oh yeah, with pain.
With pain. Oh my God, it was great. It was so good. Holy. So he's that, and then I'm playing my my Bronx Fairy. My Bronx Fairy, I'm an assay, and I kept talking like this the entire time, and like.
Yep.
And just oh man, yeah, that was a really fun game.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's probably the closest dungeon crawl I've been to.
Yeah. I've only DM'd a handful of dungeon crawls because I find most of the time by about the third encounter, most of the players at the table would rather to be doing something else. So I tend to avoid them, but I've run a few successfully. It depends on the group. Some people love combat.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I think there probably just needs to, like, even people that need combat need the balance between combat and doing something else, like even just solving a puzzle or.
Nope. Just wave after wave of goblins. Every wave has smaller and smaller loincloths.
Ooh. I think it would just kill myself at that point.
Wow, that's a strong reaction. I know what you're facing in the future. A wish thing, a wizard's pull-off wish. That's what you're facing.
There you go.
It's just going to summon goblins.
A bulletin board.
Oh God, summons goblins.
When hit with any kind of force, something will fall off of it, and when it lands, it casts a random spell.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
That's very wild.
That's like a gazebo that actually like fights back. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. I don't know how you would possibly introduce it to the game, but I like that.
Just a random gazebo someplace. Just a random board posting. Yeah, just in the middle of a road someplace.
Somehow convince the party to cast a fireball on it or something. Yeah. You can trip. You stub your toe on it. That hurts the board too. You step on a nail wrong. Every time the party walks by the bulletin board, can I get everybody to make me dex checks? Oh, you guys should go back to the other side of town. Can I get everybody to make me dex checks? You really should go back to can I get everybody?
Ooh,
yes, they failed.
Ooh, you failed. Well, you nudged the bulletin board and a random flyer happened to dislodge from it. As it makes its way to the ground, it lands with an earth-shattering explosion.
Pew.
Everybody make a deck save.
I think that's what we refer to as try hard DMing.
Yeah.
No, there's lots of ways you can improve a dungeon crawl, but my stance for newbies especially is steer clear if you can.
Yep.
Short combats that especially narratively, if you can sort of give yourself an out that doesn't, like if they're having them alone in the woods against some people is tricky because there's no good narrative way that you can pull them out of that situation.
Mm-hmm.
You have to intervene with direct guidance. But if you can have it happening in a town or something like that, you can always have somebody on the sidelines help out in some way or whatever. If it's a paladin, have a member of their order on the sidelines looking disapproving because they're not casting heal.
Shame.
Yes.
Shame.
Yeah, just shame.
Just rings a bell periodically.
Shame. So that would be some things that I would sort of I would try to keep it so that you can always intervene within the narrative. Honestly, don't hesitate to jump in with advice directly. I've very rarely had players like say that wasn't welcome. It's actually more often than not, players are like, thank you.
Yeah.
We needed that.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think you need to be too worried about just jumping in, but wherever you can, I like to wrap it in narration.
Yep.
So that's pretty easy.
Well,
you
actually, you
Yeah,
wanted to
I
bring
have
up
a thing.
Kickstarter.
Yes.
I backed a new Kickstarter today. It still has 26 days left, and it's called D&T. And it's a tea-based Kickstarter. Well, it's a tea Kickstarter. It's tea with what is the actual title here? Let me just scroll all the way back.
An
up.
infusion of dragon piss. Wait, no, that's wrong.
A great infusion of RPGs and
tea. Yeah, so they have a bunch of different flavors that are like inspired by D&D or RPG type names like Arborean Thicket, Mountain Squall,
Mary Berry Chai.
No. Volcanic Inferno, Pumpkin Harvest, Cozy Cottage. Their first two stretch goals, which are personal infusions that the creators have come up with, they've been unlocked. And their stretch goal 3, which is thematic tea tins, has been unlocked. And their fourth stretch goal, which they're pretty close to at this point, is for sampler sets because they've been around. This is their second Kickstarter. And they have been going to conventions as well, and people are always asking them for like little sampler packs where they can try all their different flavors. And then what are you shaking your head about?
No.
Yes. They can try all their different flavors, and so if they reach their fourth stretch goal, then they're gonna have that with this new Kickstarter. So yeah, if you like tea, go back it so we can get sampler packs. You know what this is missing? This is a missed opportunity. So, obviously, anytime we talk about any company, we know that the people at the company are watching. Yes, of course. Always. Doesn't matter what company, they're always watching. So we start talking, it summons them. That's right. So D&T, this is to you who are obviously watching. You need to create potions that each of these teas represent so that as a DM, I can serve these during the game and people can choose which potion that they would like to imbibe, whether it's a minor healing potion or, whatever. Pick a handful of fairly weak potions so that they're not game breaking, and have it so that as the DM, I can serve these teas with their associated potion drafts. I like that. Yeah, they get on it.
Shit, are we D&T shills now too?
Yes, yeah, I think we are. Yes, okay, we are. Cool. You know what? I'm okay with shilling for this. This actually looks pretty cool. Yeah. I might back this as well. Yeah. But yeah, having a potion to go with each one would really kick this up a notch for me, at least.
That'd be gnarly. Almost like a gourd or something like a.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about the the pins that we saw at
that's
Origins that actually came with like the item card that they were attached to, so that you could give it to a player who had done something fun, and they would actually get that item to use. And they weren't overpowered; they were kind of cool. We even mentioned them in a much earlier podcast, maybe even the first one.
I think it was the first one.
Don't watch that episode.
Yeah, not great.
The audio is pretty bad. But that's the sort of thing I'm thinking, where it's just you can hand out potions in your D&D game. I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah.
Cool. One little thing I just want to touch on quickly before we wrap her up here, and it was just announced as well. If you're a fan of the Marvel's Avengers game, don't buy anything cosmetic. They announced today that effective March 31st, 2023, it will be the final update that the game will ever receive, which includes updates, bug fixes. Also, at the same time, every cosmetic that's currently available on that marketplace will be given to you for free.
Yep.
If you previously bought it, you're not getting a refund. And they also announced that the live service of the game will end on September 30th of this year, 2023.
Yep.
So I'm not surprised the game was poorly received in the first place.
When was it originally released?
Like a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's not that old. It's 2 or 3 years old at the most.
But unsurprising. It was a very poor attempt. But yeah, it's on Game Pass, so save your money completely and just play it on that if you really want to. I'm not going to. I have no desire to. So
yeah, we didn't mention this was announced between the last episode and this episode, right? The Stadia controller updates. Yeah. So if anyone has a Stadia controller still kicking around,
we do.
I've got one too. They're good controllers. You might even be able to eBay one or something. I don't know. But they released the update that a lot of people were anticipating that enables Bluetooth control. So you will now be able to hook those controllers up to whatever your computer, probably other game systems to an extent as well.
I want to find out if you can use it on your phone. That'd be kind of cool.
Phone should work, yeah, because it's Bluetooth. So any modern phone should be able to connect to it. Yeah, so if you've got one, they did release the update. A lot of people were saying like, yeah, hopefully they will. They came out with it a few days ago, something like that. So I think you have to connect it to your computer to do the update, but you can now install the Bluetooth update to the controller. And that way you can still use it, because obviously the service is now completely dead.
Yeah. But damn, that's a nice controller. I really like that controller.
They are really good controllers. Yeah. If you've got one, you already know that they're nice, but now if you didn't already know, now you know you can still use it.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yep.
And on that note,
I think we'll end it.
Yes. Thank you for watching. Hey, hit that like button if you do, and leave a comment down there. Tell us if you got any tips for first-time players, noobs, whatever. Your comments, good, bad, whatever. We don't care. You're all entitled to your own opinion.
Yeah, you can call us Wizard Shills. We actually don't mind at all. They're fun.
If you have access on Discord, hey, we got a Discord server. We talk about some stuff there. We've got a great little community, and
tell 3 friends.
Yeah. Also, did you know we have a website? We post reviews and stuff on it. Go read our stuff.
Yeah, we do. And some of them are great, and some of them are a little half-assed, if we're honest. Yeah. But check it out.
It's a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna be doing more of everything. So if you hate us, stick around, and if you like us, stick around.
Yeah.
We'll see you on the next one. Thanks.
Have a nice week.
Bye.